If you're in the St. Louis area and you're wondering how is the real estate market these days, is it crazy hot or is it cooled off? We're going to talk about that because it's a two-sided market these days and it really depends on your situation, where you're looking and what price points you're looking in, because we are still absolutely seeing crazy hot activity in specific situations, and in other scenarios things have cooled off. There is less demand, there's less movement. So we're going to talk about that, whether you are in the market to buy or whether you're selling, and what this means for you. Welcome back to the video. I'm Jacob.
Hi, I'm Kelly. It's very, very interesting because up until about 6 months ago, we could answer that question one way. The market's ridiculous. Houses are flying off the market. It didn't matter if they were beautiful, if they were ugly, if they were under 500, if they were over 500. Houses were just flying off the market. And we have seen a little bit of a shift in that, maybe more in the last year than just the last 6 months. But I think the last 6 months, it's really made a turn. And to your point, it depends on so many different factors. We can no longer answer that question with a blanket statement. So it depends. Are you looking for a house on acreage? That market is still hot. However, in that market, if your house is not pristine, landscaped beautifully, if you have a pool, the pool has to be in perfect condition. The house has to be totally updated. And we're not just talking about cosmetic updates. People want updated roof, septic if you're on septic. They want all of these things completed, but the buyers are willing to pay a premium for that. So I'll give you a really good example. There was a house that hit the market a few days ago and it was active, but not starting showings until Friday. So I scheduled my showing for Friday. So the agent called everybody who had expressed interest or scheduled a showing and said, hey, we're starting showings early. The house was priced at $1.3 million. It was on a 1-acre lot, wooded with a pool, totally updated. The house was beautiful. It was in St. Charles County. So I was going to take my buyer that evening. This was roughly around 2:00. By the time that our appointment was at 5:30, there was already more than one offer on that house. So for the seller, that means they're going to sell very quickly. They're probably going to get at or above list price. But what does that mean for you as a buyer? So for you as a buyer, if you're looking at a house in that situation, you have to make a decision. Are you willing to pay at or over list price for this home? My buyer decided he did not want to get into that. And that's fine. That is completely within your rights to make that decision for you. Or is this your dream home? Your forever home, a home that you're willing to put that money into? And I believe it was priced right. Are you willing to pay at or over list price and potentially waive some contingencies? So those are things that you need to look at. What is your comfort level in doing something like that?
Yeah, and to your point, it's really that the homes that are ready to go as they are, move-in ready, does not need any work, and priced appropriately, those are the hottest listings on the market right now that are going very fast in competitive situations, sometimes over list price. That's where it's competitive. The ones that are maybe a little bit less attractive, they are maybe a little bit overpriced, they need some work, you got to get your hands dirty to, get a little updated. Those are the ones where you might have a little bit more negotiation power. But that's what we mean when we say the market's very two-sided right now, where people are just more picky about the homes they're willing to fight for. And so it's the ones that are fully updated, ready to go, that are best positioned to get the most attention right now.
Yeah, 100%. In fact, on the flip side of that, we have a house with beautiful bones, a beautiful lot, a fabulous pool. The house has a newer roof, but it needs some cosmetic updating. Nothing major. But it's priced about $50,000 or more under its improved value. So the improvements are not going to be more than $50,000. So it's very, very well priced. But what we're finding is that the buyers just don't want to do that work. And it's going to take a very specific buyer for a house like that. But I would prefer to get a good deal in a house and do the work myself. But we're finding that buyers just do not want to do that.
And by the way, if you are thinking about making a move, whether you're buying or whether you're selling, and you want to talk more about the implications for you and your circumstances, we'd love to have that conversation. So just get in touch with us, email, call, text, whatever works for you. We are a group of practicing realtors, and conversations like this is really what we do on a daily basis. When people reach out from this YouTube channel and want to talk more about what the finances are going to look like for them, it's conversations like this where it really does depend on your situation. So if you want some help, get in touch with us.
The other thing that we can do to help you is that we have partnered with some fantastic lenders that can guide you towards what is the best product for you, what's the best down payment, what is going to make the most sense for you financially. And so that is, I think, a tremendous service that we offer to our buyers as well. I think the second part of the equation, Jacob, is when interest rates started to come up, a lot of people didn't know how to negotiate through the raising interest rates.
Yeah.
So for some buyers, that completely priced them out of the market because it was an affordability issue. For some buyers, they just didn't want to pay a higher interest rate. So it was our job as realtors to be able to explain to a buyer, why would I want to buy right now? So from my perspective, first of all, even at over 6% touching 7, which they have just started declining. But when you are renting, you're paying 100% interest. So you're lining somebody else's pockets and ultimately making somebody else rich.
Right.
When you enter into a market where there's slightly higher interest rates, there's less competition. So the same house, let's say the house is $500,000. A year ago, there would have been 10 offers. You're paying $550,000. You're waiving your contingencies. If one of the contingencies you waive is the appraisal, you run the risk of having to come out of pocket with additional money if it does not appraise.
Yes.
And that same house today, priced at $500,000, let's say it's a very nice house and it sells first day on the market, it's probably only selling for list price. We're not seeing wild over list price offers. And I think that's hard for people to grasp because you will be paying more in the very short term in the prepaid interest on your loan, but you can renegotiate your loan, most conventional loans, as many times as you want as the rates go down. And some lenders, when the rates went up, got really creative and will allow you to either recast the loan, which means throw a bunch of money at the loan so your principal is lower, so you can recast that loan at a lower principal.
Without refinancing.
Correct. So your payment goes down. Or you could refinance that loan at the lower rate. And most lenders are doing that one time for no cost.
Another thing I want to touch on that you brought up is, when we have some of these competitive situations where we have to get creative as far as how you're going to win the house, sometimes people don't understand how that happens or, why these homes are selling so crazy over list price. And I think that it's important to know there's kind of two different ways of thinking when we walk through homes with buyers. There's the one kind of person that is very analytical, very logical in that decision where we're breaking out the spreadsheets, we're calculating, okay, how much are we going to go over list price? What's that mortgage payment going to look like? How much are you comfortable with spending on a monthly basis? And on the other side, there's the very emotional part of that decision where it's your dream home. You love the floor plan, you love the layout, you love what's inside, the location. This is the home where you want to raise your family, have all those memories. This is where you're going to be for the next 4, 5, 10 years, and you want it to be this home. And sometimes people are willing to, pay more for that, even if it doesn't always make sense on paper. There's those two sides of it where sometimes we have some very logical people that are driven by the analytics competing sometimes against people that are very emotional about it. And sometimes you have to take both into account when coming up with the most compelling offer, whether it's the price you're offering or whether it's the terms, the contingencies, the closing date, concessions, stuff like that. There's a lot that goes into it. And there's a lot of different ways that other buyers come at that. And so it's kind of like you have to take all of that into account when deciding what the right offer is for you.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Sometimes our job is to take the analytical person and say, hey, I know on paper this doesn't make sense, but let's look at it that way. And then sometimes it's our job to take the emotional person and say, hey, I know you love this house, but let's talk through what price makes the most sense because I don't want to see you somewhere that you're going to be upside down in 2 years. So we will guide you to that. And I'll tell you, some people are going to say, I don't care if I'm upside down. I want this house. And then there's going to be some people that are going to say, I don't care if someone else is willing to pay over list price. I'm not. It doesn't make sense on paper. So my buyer yesterday said, I'm out. Yeah. I don't care if someone else says that it's worth more. I say, this is what I'm willing to pay for this house. And if it goes over, I'm not getting a bidding war.
Yeah. And I think it's smart sometimes too to just, with every house, know your number. As far as, okay, you know what, if that's your number, we can work with that, great. And if that number isn't high enough or, there's too many offers and it doesn't work out, walk away feeling good because you knew your number wasn't going to work for that house and you can walk away knowing that, it was not the right situation for you.
Right. And as realtors, part of our job also is to know what is too much. So this particular neighborhood that this house was in, as a realtor, I would have been 100% comfortable if my buyer had to go up to 1.4 or even 1.45 because I know the market. It's a luxury home situated in a subdivision of all luxury homes and in an area where even the next subdivision and the next subdivision are luxury homes over $1 million. So the likelihood of that home holding or increasing in value is very, very high. My buyer understood that, but said, hey, for me, that doesn't make sense. I don't care. So I think we can go to the other end of that, Jacob, and talk about what do we do when we see a house that we like that has been on the market for a while? From a listing perspective and from a seller's perspective, we can talk about it both ways. So when we have a house that we feel like we've priced accordingly and we've put it on the market and we've marketed it and we're getting a lot of showings, sometimes, for whatever reason, that house isn't selling. So we have to evaluate with the client, what is the reason for that? What are you willing to do to adjust that? So let's say it's condition. Are you willing to replace your carpet? Are you willing to paint? Are you willing to add new landscape? If the answers to those questions are no, then we have to say, okay, are you willing to adjust your price? Because at a certain point, and it's not necessarily days on market, it might be we have a really hot listing and it's had 15 showings, but we've gotten no offers. What is that saying to us? That says the buyer's either not willing to do the work on the house, so maybe you need to do some things, or the buyer's not willing to do the work on the house at the price we have it listed for.
And sometimes you'll get feedback that's very targeted around a specific thing. It's the carpet, it's the kitchen, it's the bathroom, something that, isn't up to standards that the buyers are looking for. And sometimes it's very mixed. It's kind of across the board. There's not one recurring theme that comes up with the feedback. And it's just about the price or that, it's not the right fit for the buyers looking at it. So depending on your situation, you got to evaluate the feedback carefully because sometimes it'll very clearly tell you what's wrong. And sometimes there's a little bit of guesswork involved.
Sure. And sometimes we know that going into the marketing. We know this house needs new flooring on the second floor. That's something that as a listing agent, I can kind of say that to potential buyers agents like, hey, this is a fabulous house in a fabulous school district. It's been well maintained. It just needs some cosmetic things. So please, before you come, make sure your buyers are aware. And what we did to help in this particular situation is we supplied comparable sales as part of our listing presentation at the home. So that if the agent working with the buyers didn't do that on their side, we're providing them with that information. Now, the buyers still have to be willing to put in that work. So on the flip side, I have the buyer. Let's say we are working with the buyer and we see this house that's been on the market for several weeks. 5 years ago, several weeks wasn't a big deal, but all of a sudden, several weeks is a long time in the market. Before I go see the home, I'm going to review the comps and I'm going to look at that and say, okay, it seems to be priced really well. What's going on? When we get there, if we see these things, what I would say to the buyer is, hey, listen, here are the comparable sales, the comparable sales of an improved home. So we would take the same home and say, let's apply those updates. Let's say it had newer carpet. Let's say it was painted. It had a new fence. We add those costs of those things to the current price. And I would say either priced a little high because the work that's needed to be done is X and the improved value is this, so that they're not matching up. Or I would say to my buyer, hey, this is a heck of a deal. If you're looking to move into a home and have instant equity by doing a few things, this makes sense. But it's our job to educate. Yes. And also, if you can get a killer deal in a great neighborhood that you're going to increase your equity, I think that is better than paying for somebody else's expensive updates.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
But not every buyer agrees with that.
Yeah, very personal. And it, comes down to what you're comfortable with and, what you value in the home that you're looking at.
Sure. Somebody else might say, hey, listen, I get that house is a good deal, but I'd rather pay $50,000 more and not have to do anything.
Yeah, definitely two ways of looking at it.
That's some examples in our higher end market. But as we get to the under 500 or under 400 price points, I think that does change just a little bit. In those price points, as we go up in price point, we come down in the buyer pool. There's not as many buyers. Ironically, there seems to be a lot of buyers in the $1 million plus range. It's very strange. We've gotten a lot of you from these YouTube videos coming here to our area, getting a lot of value for your money, but that includes that luxury market. A house here that's $1 million or $1.5 million in another market would be double in price. So when we get down in price, as we go down in price, we move up in the buyer pool. So there's a little bit more competition. So that's why we're finding in the lower price points, mostly across the board, in those lower price ranges, we are seeing lower days on market and a lot of sales that are closer or even over list price. So anytime we head into an election, it doesn't matter who's in office or who wins the election. Anytime we move into a period of economic uncertainty, which is, and it always surrounds an election, we will see a little bit of turmoil in the real estate market, and it always levels out. I've been doing this a long time and seen a lot of elections, and that always happens. It's not unusual. But I think it's very, very important to make sure that as a buyer or as a seller, you have somebody working for you and with you who is experienced, who does this full time, who understands the changing market and how do we pivot and change marketing plans, touring, all the things that we need to change to help you meet your goal, whether it's to sell your house or to buy a house.
I think that's a really good point, especially about, working with a full-time agent, which all of us are, and working with someone who sells more than 1 or 2 homes a year to have the resources and the systems in place to make that happen, especially when things are crazy, things are up in the air, we don't know how it's going to turn out. Who you choose to work with is definitely a big part of the process. So if you would like help with that, again, just reach out to us, send us an email, send us a text. We would love to work with you and earn your business.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.